we really feel if you're going to have any six-figure project, be it roofing, be it lake restoration, be it a repiping, a replumbing, sprinkler systems, life safety systems, you really need to have an engineer overseeing that project. And most will not do it because they think it's an additional cost, which it is. But as a board, again, we may be six people from six different states who have never done this before in our lives, but we can get an engineer in there who does that every day, all day.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us at Building Integrity again. My guest today is Scott Gregory from Mcgriff Insurance. We're going to be talking about insurance as it relates to condominium associations and homeowners associations in the state of Florida. Morning, Scott. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Hey, my pleasure. So you work for Mcgriff Insurance Company, which I understand is it's a part of a giant corporation.
Yes. Yeah, Mcgriff Insurance is the wholly owned subsidiary of Truist Bank. And we've been, Truist Bank was the merger of the BB&T and SunTrust banks recently. Now we're a wholly owned subsidiary of Truist. We're a top 10 insurance broker in the United States, independent agents. And then we also have our own wholesale operation and some other operations as well. But really what we do here in Florida is we have an independent agency and several offices throughout the state of Florida.
So how long have you been in the insurance business then?
I've been in the insurance business now 26 years. My office is located in Fort Myers, but we cover pretty much all of South Florida, Tampa to right across the state, all the way down to Miami-Dade County. And I've been there 26 years. We specialize in association business and have for many years. We've been members of the local CAI chapter, the South Gulf Coast chapter. I've been a member there for 26 years, or past president of the association. So we've been very involved in the association business for insurance throughout the years. And it's something that we really enjoy, and we've worked with, literally thousands of associations over that time period.
Right. And so one of the four pillars of a good association then is your insurance agent, along with your attorney, your property manager, and an engineer. And those are things that you really need to give you that strong foundation in your association. So maybe you could tell me a little bit about how insurance for an association might differ from your typical single-family homeowners insurance.
Sure. Well, in Florida, association insurance really is a cottage industry. And that's kind of why we have our local chapter of CAI, National CAI, and other groups, because in Florida, you have thousands of associations throughout the state, condo, homeowner, property owners association. And if you take a look at the law, there are certain statutes that govern associations. They govern condominium associations, homeowners associations, and co-ops. So you have to follow the statute. That's number one. And that's a little different from other states because our statutes are unique to us and how we do business here. Also, every association is going to have bylaws. They're going to have articles of incorporation, and they're going to have a set of documents that apply just to them and their property, what they want and how they want it done, which is unique to each association. A lot of that information can be similar but across associations, but a lot of it can also be very particular to that type of association, depending on how you started. So we really are a cottage industry, and there's a lot of policies that go into making up the total insurance program. At Mcgriff, we really it's more than just an insurance policy placement. It's really more of a risk management program. And when I say risk management, I mean that is insurance and non-insurance issues. So it's easy just to get a bid or to take a look at an insurance policy and then pick the lowest one or what you think is the best. Really, what we try to do is bring the whole suite of services to an association. And that can be from insurance, it could be contract management, it could be assisting with other vendors, repairs. The new thing now with maybe building integrity, roofing issues, roofing changes, law changes. We try and stay up to date on all of that to bring all of the information that we can to a board at any given renewal year, so they have all the information necessary, to make the best decisions they can moving forward.
So what goes into you said it's a risk management, it's kind of insurance and non-insurance products. So what all components go into a comprehensive risk management setup for a large association?
Sure. Well, the first thing you have to do is you have to start with the association's documents. You have to read the documents and understand what the requirements are for insurance in those documents. All associations will have an insurance provision in their documents, and we need to make sure that we're meeting that expectation. And sometimes if we can't, because of the hard insurance market, maybe certain types of coverages, certain limits are not available. We need to let the board know that because we may not always be able to do the school solution and make it done right. Once we look at the documents of an association, then we'll take a look at the insurance policies, make sure that the underwriting information applications are correct. Then we'll look at the windstorm mitigation forms. Are they up to date on a building, on a condo association, for example? Um, and they really only apply to residential properties, not so much to clubhouses and things like that. And then we'll go ahead and take a look if they have a reserve study, we'll look at a reserve study. See what do they have on the reserve study? What's the value of the buildings? What's the expected life? Have there been any updates to roofs, to plumbing, to electrical, and those sorts of things? Any life safety updates? Sprinklers, hardwired smoke detectors, ANSEL systems for kitchens
Mhm.
on some of our co-ops and things like that. So you really need to take a look at the total insurability of an association because when we go to market and we send our applications out to companies, we're painting a picture of an association to an underwriter, and then when we get our quotes back, we're taking those underwriting quotes back to the association and painting a picture to the board as well. So it's kind of it's a two-way process where we really take a look and at everything that they have available to us, and then paint that picture, understand what that association does, and what they can do, and then what's available in the market, and that's kind of where we end up at the end of the day.
All right. So, what type of components go into like a full, being fully insured? I mean, you have your liability insurance,
Hmm.
the insurance on the physical property itself,
Hmm.
wind, flood. What else is there?
Sure, I think this really goes to the heart of your question. What's the difference? I mean, if you have a single-family home, you have a homeowner's policy, maybe a flood policy. When you look at an association, there are several policies. First is going to be the property policy for all the real property that's available that they own, and then we're going to have a general liability policy for third-party bodily injury and property claims that occur on the property, among other things. Then we may have an umbrella policy, which provides higher limits of insurance over the general liability, D&O, automobile liability, and maybe workers' compensation. After the umbrella, we'll have a directors and officers liability policy for the management of the association, for the things that the board does and maybe does not do that they can be sued for.
Mm.
We'll have a workers' compensation policy and a minimum premium basis normally for any uninsured subcontractors that come onto the property. If they own an auto, we'll have an auto policy there. And then finally, usually we'll have a fidelity bond policy for an association for all the common money and property in the event of theft, because there's been some issues recently in Southwest Florida related to those related to bonds and money and the oversight of that. So they'll always have a bond as well. So that's really there's several policies that are available to an association. Um, there are others such as mold, legal liability coverage, some other things to consider, but they're really more of on a case by case basis, depending on the age of the property, the amenities that they have, and really what the size of the property is. Is it 20 units? Is it 200? Do they have a clubhouse? Do they have a restaurant? Do they have docks? Who owns the docks? So what you really have to do is customize everything that we do to that association and whatever exposures that they have on site.
Okay. Now, I've heard you say a couple times that we're in a hard market. So, what does that mean as far as being in a hard market? How did we get here? And where do we go from here now?
Sure. Well, I think it's been quite a surprise this year. When we call it a hard market in insurance, we mean hard to get good coverage in terms and hard to get a good premium. We're really facing a property insurance crisis in the state of Florida this year. The culmination of that was the Surfside collapse, which really was the trigger to say, we need to relook how we're doing things here in the state of Florida. But it had been going on prior to that. We saw it after Hurricane Charlie. We saw it after Hurricane Irma, where a lot of issues came up. The issue that we're having, and it's very broad, and there's a lot of components to it, but there's a lot of insurance companies that can't or won't do business in Florida. Either the risk is too great, they can't find enough reinsurance, or they can't get enough premium to cover the risk as they see it. And then on top of that, with the Surfside collapse and the building laws and some other issues, people are very much scared to come into the market and provide insurance. If you look at insurance, at the end of the day, it's really just a transfer of risk. You're giving us a premium for a certain limit of insurance that we're going to cover certain claims, and we're giving you our promise to cover those claims as long as they're covered under the policy. That's really it. It's just a straight risk transfer. So you have to charge a premium that is going to cover those claims when and if they do come in. Right now, to date, we've had it within the past year, 7 homeowners insurance companies have gone into receivership in the state of Florida. That means the claims that came in, they weren't charging enough to pay the claims when they came in. And that's a serious issue.
Hmm.
And we're having a lot of the same problems with the commercial insurance now, especially with property and umbrella carriers. So, companies to be able to charge an adequate premium to cover the expected losses. And for many reasons, it's becoming harder and harder to do. So they will not write insurance in the state of Florida, and they'll deploy their capacity to other states. And that's what we call a hard market, because we used to have, maybe several different options for a policy. Now we're down to 2 and maybe 3. And that is really a hard situation. It's tough to explain it to people, because most of our people now, you see, they're moving in from other states. They may have paid a third to a half of what they pay here in Florida.
Yeah.
And once they get past that sticker shock and you explain it, they're kind of like, okay, we're in a catastrophe zone in Southwest Florida. So we always have a hurricane premium. We have flood. You may be in a flood zone. They may never experience that up north. So, there really is a lot unique to this business in Florida that you might not see anywhere else in the country.
Hmm. So, what can a association do proactively to put themselves in a better position? To be, I don't know what you want to say, like a good
Uh,
fit for insurance, to look more
yeah,
attractive
yeah.
to an insurance company that's going to
Yeah.
take on that risk.
Sure. Well, it's about painting the picture of your association, and also doing everything that you can to keep the property in a good state of repair.
Preventive maintenance.
Preventive maintenance, absolutely. You're going to start seeing some changes in the future about reserves and what we can reserve for, funding of reserves. But really, if you take a look at an association, that's their home, and the board has a fiduciary responsibility to maintain that property in the best interest of everyone involved. So we really need to be taking a look at the older buildings on the electrical systems, plumbing systems, roofing systems. How old are the sprinkler systems? How old are the generators that protect these buildings? All these things will eventually age out, and they must be, in my opinion, really reserved for and replaced and repaired on a regular basis. But what we found in Surfside and other places is that sometimes this work is just not getting done.
Mhm.
People are kicking the can down the road, and eventually, there's going to be a problem. It's just a question of when, not if. It's a question of when. So what they can do is make sure that all their studies are up to date. Their reserve studies are up to date. They're on a maintenance schedule. They're looking to repair, replace property as it ages out, and they're really beginning to take a harder look as a board into the components of a building, because that's really, I think, what you're going to see in the future. There's going to be more responsibility, either through law or underwriting guidelines and practices, to make sure that boards are doing those sorts of things. And that's kind of tough when you have a 6-person volunteer board where maybe none of those people grew up in Florida. Maybe none of them ever had a flood policy. None of them ever lived in a catastrophe zone with a wind policy and a hurricane exposure and the saltwater impact that we have on a lot of our coastal buildings.
Right.
They may never have dealt with this before. So there's a big learning process, and that's why, to go back to your comment earlier, you have a set of professionals that are available to you there as a board.
Mhm.
And you really should be leaning on and utilizing those professionals, getting their opinions, getting their advice, because many of the people that we deal with as professionals here in Southwest Florida have been doing this for a number of years. And all that advice is readily available to you, to a board, to make their decision.
Yeah, that is good advice. So I've heard it said before that shopping around for insurance is essentially futile because it's all, it all comes from the same place.
Hmm.
And, you're kind of shooting yourselves in the foot if you go from an agent that you've worked with for a number of years. You have a
Hmm.
relationship with them, they know you, they know the property. But especially because, as you were saying, boards are volunteer uh,
Hmm.
committees essentially.
Sure.
They're the director of a nonprofit corporation, but they change out more so than
Than a
a
normal,
for-profit
right?
corporation
Yes.
would, right? So the new people don't necessarily know what's been going on in the past.
Hmm.
Um, but can you speak to a little bit about how, going and shopping for insurance
Hmm.
and trying to find a new agent is somewhat counterproductive?
Yeah, the reason is that insurance agents do not set pricing. I mean, you may see it on TV, you may hear it on the radio. We do not set pricing. Insurance companies set pricing. So we can influence it a little bit, but at the end of the day, the price for the risk is going to be the price of the risk, regardless of the company, the avenue you take to that particular company. What our role is as an agent is to go to all of the options that we have and to bring those options to you. So depending if you're a 10-story beachfront barrier island property, you're a 2-story 15 building, 4 units each inland property. There's going to be different companies that will be in the mix to provide you quotes. So our job is when you come to me, it's our job to do that shopping for you, and we do that. In fact, we give every association a written report every year of where we went to get quotes on their behalf, and we give them the results of that. So if someone declined it because the building was too old, it's on a buried island, we tell them that's fine. But it's our job really to do that shopping and to make sure that we've covered all of our bases. And being a leading insurance agent in Southwest Florida, I think we do have almost every option that's out there. We represent every major company that's available to us today, and that really is our role. So if you go to another company or another agency, they're going to have to recreate everything that we've been doing the past couple of years. And we want to be a trusted advisor to the association. I mean, we want people to trust that what we're doing and what we're bringing to the table, that we have gone to market and looked at all those options. And that's something that we do on a regular basis. So if you're looking for a trusted advisor relationship, which we would think, most associations should do, because you can have associations that own $40 million in real property. I mean, we may say we're a little nonprofit. We're far from being a little nonprofit. We are a major corporation for the most part, all of our associations, sometimes tens of millions of dollars just in the real property alone. And that's not counting your landscaping, your location, your land, and everything that's with it. So our role, when we feel as a trusted advisor, to bring all the options to them, make sure it's done properly in accordance with their documents and the law and what they want and what they can budget, and then let them choose at the end of the day, the companies that they want to be, and then we provide our advice as well.
Right. So very similar to what we do with the contractors and the engineering oversight.
Yes.
Okay. So can we talk a little bit about the future market and where we're going from here? I understand that the state legislature was in the midst of changing laws,
Mhm.
post Champlain Towers collapse, post Hurricane Irma, when all of these conditions for the hard market that we're in, began to be set up. So I am of the opinion that insurance and banking industry is going to be driving the changes that we see in the condominium and homeowners associations industries up until the state legislature can go ahead and make the legal changes whenever
Right.
that happens.
Right.
So where are we going from here?
Well, I think a lot of that is up in the air. I mean, but my personal opinion, really, and today I can really only speak for myself. I don't speak on behalf officially of, my employer or any insurance agent or broker, because a lot of this could and probably will change. It really is in a state of flux. But as some may know, the governor has called a special session of the legislature for property insurance. It is because of the Champlain Towers, the Surfside, and all those other associations that have had issues to date, because it really opened up a lot of people's eyes to the aging buildings, mostly on the East Coast, but on the West Coast as well. It really opened up people's eyes to the exposure of older properties and are they being maintained? Because you may have a 6-person volunteer board in charge of a 50 or a $60 million building, and they may honestly have no experience in taking care of that. And that's okay. It's been that way for many years. But what those tragedies have shown is we need much more oversight into this whole process. And the insurance companies are very scared that they're going to be on the hook for those collapses and anything that happens moving forward. And I personally feel, frankly, that we as an insurance industry, we cannot afford to provide insurance coverage for those kinds of mistakes, whether intentional, whether honest, it doesn't matter. We cannot charge enough premium to cover those sorts of issues. So what you're going to start to see is the legislature is going to come in and make some changes. You're going to see insurance companies now requesting more information, more underwriting, more inspections, more information on a building, because they have to really understand what they're taking a look at. Um, a 40-year-old building that has never been looked at structurally is not the same risk as one that's been recently inspected, looked at, maybe had a renovation, a concrete renovation of its balconies. It's had its all
Right.
rebar taken care of.
Absolutely.
Pre-stress has all been looked at and not quote certified, but looked at. So you're going to start seeing people in companies really differentiating to that kind of level to make sure that the buildings are safe and that they're able to provide insurance for them, depending on the rates that they want to charge.
Well, I've had attorneys on, and they were talking about a board member being able to rely on an expert
Mhm.
and the opinions of an expert. What is that? how does that make you more attractive to from an insurance perspective when you're relying on your experts as opposed to just making board decisions kind of
Sure.
willy nilly?
Sure, I'll tell you, it does. And some people ask me, how does that impact my insurance? Well, if we're going to do a roofing project, let's just say it's $1 million roofing project, we're going to bring a lot of different people onto that project. And how that project gets done does directly impact the insurability of the building, the materials used, the warranties that are in place, the quality of the work that's done. You may have the greatest roofing company in the world that comes out there to do that, but they may not have all of the best subcontractors. You may have 5 or 6 different subcontractors on that job at any one time. So we really feel if you're going to have any six-figure project, be it roofing, be it lake restoration, be it a repiping, a replumbing, sprinkler systems, life safety systems, you really need to have an engineer overseeing that project. And most will not do it because they think it's an additional cost, which it is. But as a board, again, we may be 6 people from 6 different states who have never done this before in our lives. But we can get an engineer in there who does that every day, all day. And especially when you get into roofing and lake restoration, the amount of regulation and oversight by the governmental authorities is significant. You need somebody who can walk you through that process. And then from start to finish, who are the good contractors in that business?
Mhm.
Let's make sure it's an apples to apples contract. Let's make sure that they're staying on project, they're staying on time, and that we have a good agreement with them right up front to say what we get at the end of the day is what we really asked for. And usually your average board member in Florida cannot do that. You need a professional who can sign off and say at the end of the day, you asked for X, you got X at a fair price, and it's really what you wanted. It's a little different in Florida. We're a much more transient population with our contractors. It's a tough market for contractors. We've got a lot of great ones, but like any industry, we've got some out there, like after the hurricanes that show up from other states, that may or may not be licensed, or it may take your money and they disappear. Um, and we really need, and when we get into those bigger projects for association, we really do recommend they have an engineering consultant to see it through. Because at the end of the day, when we go to market and say that the plumbing was replaced, that they have all new roofs and it's done to code, we have documentation we can show. We have a contract. We have all of our certificates of completion. We can say that the engineer looked at it and they were up on the roof, they're in the rafters, whatever it is that they did. It just gives an underwriter more of a comfort that what has been done well, and that's really what it
So it
all
makes
boils
it
down
a
to.
more attractive risk for the insurer than knowing that the work
Yes,
is more likely to have been completed properly.
yes, because many times people will say, "Well, the work was done," but they won't have anything they won't have a final a closeout. They won't have a final receipt. They won't have a release of lien.
Mm.
All the things that we're kind of looking at to make sure that the project was done well. And it's really just about doing it well. And for all the different things that we do with associations, you really need that third party person that understands that business. And that's really, I think, it's going to be key moving forward. Because again, if I put a new roof on my home, I really, other than the piece of paper I got, which is my proposal, I don't know what I got up there. I'm never going to crawl up there. I'm not going to pull off the nails. I'm not going to look at the adhesives. I'm not going to be able to do that and take a look at it. I need to make sure it's been done right up front. And I think that's going to be very important moving forward. Because even though you can get in a warranty on a roof, that's only a warranty of the material. That's not a warranty of the workmanship. We say the same things we talked about in the class about paint. If you're doing a major painting project, who specs the paint? Well, usually the painter. Well, maybe you want an engineer to spec that paint. Because when we do a large painting job, the caulking can be more important than the paint. Everybody focuses on the paint. And so I got a 10-year a guarantee on my paint. I said, that doesn't matter if the caulking hasn't been done properly or they used indoor caulking by mistake. So the whole specking out of a project to get the good materials, the latest and greatest, I think it's really important. And I think it's going to be more important moving forward.
Yeah, that's something that's been an easier sell now than it used to be as far as the
Yes.
engineering representation. So I was wondering if I could ask one question specifically about the roofing issue.
Hmm.
So roofing is one of the projects that we frequently oversee here at Consult Engineering.
Hmm.
Try to make the association the best deal that they can get on
Hmm.
an appropriate roof for the building with the most modern products available.
Hmm.
And you know, some of these product manufacturers and then the roofers themselves will warrant a roof for 15, 20, 25 years. Some roofing uh, excuse me. Some roofing systems are, will
Mhm.
theoretically last 40, 50 years. So why is it that insurance companies now seem to be saying, we are almost unwilling to insure a roof that's over 15 years old,
Right.
sometimes as low as 12 years old?
Sure. Well, that really came out of Hurricane Irma. What we found in Hurricane Irma was that when a hurricane comes through, if you have a 25-year-old roof under Florida's building code, if more than 25% of the roof is damaged, the insurance company is responsible to put a whole new roof on.
Hmm.
So there's really no incentive for you to ever re-roof your building if you're just going to wait for the new hurricane and have it repaired by your insurance. That was something that we as an insurance industry were not prepared to pay. We expect people to replace their roofs after a certain period of time. You've been reserving all those years for the roof, hopefully adequately, and we really weren't expecting the number of claims that we had. And the size of the claims, the assignment of benefits is a very serious issue. Where we had, our claims really did explode after Hurricane Irma because of the assignment of benefits, public adjusting, and all of the lawsuits that came out of it. So what insurance companies are saying now is we're happy to insure your roof, but we've taken where the roofer may come in and say it's a 20-year guarantee on the roof. That's only a guarantee on the product. And our saltwater system in our coastal areas down here, really what we find is those roofs do not last as long as they say that they're going to last. So insurance companies have pulled back on the age of the roofs. They're either giving actual cash value on older roofs or they're asking people to update their roofs to really get the proper roof on there. You know, a lot of times when we think of a roof, we think of the lowest cost roof we can get.
Right.
And I can tell you, I just had a case here in Punta Gorda where an association went and they wanted to re-roof. It's getting about time. It's 2 years till their reserve study says they should re-roof. But let's go ahead and do it now. A roofer came in and said, "We will do an overlay on this roof and we'll call it a new roof." Well, that's how it was sold to them, but that's not a new roof. If I take a membrane and put a new membrane on an old roof, if there's any water damage or structural issues to how that original roof is adhered to the building, no matter what coating I put on it with a 50-year guarantee, it's still not properly attached. And when we put a membrane on that old roof, if there's any water underneath it, we've now trapped the water underneath this new membrane,
Mhm.
which will cause even more extensive damage, what has to be covered by insurance. So what we're finding is, when you talk about, consult engineering and people, going out to take a look at that roof, I say anytime a roofing project is done with an association, you should have an engineer at some level. Now, if you want the full blown soup to nuts, bidding to a final inspection, that's up to the association. But if you think about it, when we get a new roof as an association, we never go up there and know what we're getting really. All we know is what's on that piece of paper and how it looks. And we really need to, as boards and as industry, understand that what's being put on there is exactly what we wanted. It's the
Mhm.
best we can get, and it's done to code. Because we as individuals will never have the opportunity to take a look at that if we don't have someone who really knows what they're doing to find out.
So tell me what you've learned about homeowners associations and the people in them throughout the course of your career.
Well, I have found that we get people from all over the country that come down here. So I could have six board members from six different states, six different backgrounds. And we've had people from industry, insurance CEOs, CFOs, insurance company presidents, head of underwriting for national insurance brokers. And we really do get a really eclectic mix of people in Southwest Florida from all over the country. And they all come with a different perspective. So what I've found is they all have the best hearts and the best intentions, and they want to do what's right. They're here to retire and enjoy their home. They're not here to take on a second job as a board member, as an insurance agent, as an accountant, as a lawyer, as an engineer for their properties, and that's why we have the consultants that we have. But overall, I have to say I found out that they're good people. They want to do what's right. They just need some guidance to understand, what our industry does down here and how we do it. And then once after a couple of years in the role, they kind of understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. I've served on HOA and condo boards several years myself, so I probably should never have done that. But it's sometimes you have to step in and help out. Because it is in the best interest of everybody involved. But overall, they're good people that just want to do what's right, and we just need to kind of get them to where they understand what we're doing here in Southwest Florida.
So did serving on a board yourself give you a new insight into the the people that you're dealing with and their specific needs?
Yes, it does, and I would tell you it'll never happen. But I think everybody needs to serve on their board once. It's easy to sit back and lob grenades at the 6 or 7 or 8 people, whatever your number is, that are trying to do the best for the association. But you really need to serve once on that board, attend your meetings, be involved, because it's a lot of work. And you can't, as a board, just look at a property manager and say, "Look, take care of this, take care of that." Because really, if you take a look at the board relationship with the property manager, you have a property manager, you have an accountant probably, you have an insurance agent, you have an attorney. If you're doing projects, you have an engineer who's maybe overseeing those. That's a lot of roles to play.
Mhm.
And so we have to have someone, more than one person, I should say, engaged in that process. And a lot of times we put things down to the manager, we put things on the treasurer, we put things on the president, and we have everybody else who's just kind of sitting back. And they really need to be involved in what's going on. Because, in my opinion, the best associations, the most well run associations, have all their board members engaged in something, be it architectural review, be it management company relations, be it insurance, be it finance, be it landscaping, be it project management. We really, if you're gonna engage in a 6-figure project, you really should have one board member, other than the president, overseeing that project, and just spread that work out, make sure everybody's involved in some way. And I really find that that's kind of the key to success.
Right. Excellent advice. I have noticed a trend of like maybe a new crop of CAMs, these community association managers coming up. They're 20
Hmm.
something, 30 something year old
Hmm.
managers. And I'm sure there's a lot of managers that are retiring off the top end of that age scale.
Hmm.
What would you say to a new manager that doesn't know as much as, somebody who's aging out and retiring in terms of insurance and what they ought to be looking for and doing for their association?
Sure. Well, we find the same thing with board members. With the baby boomers changing now, we see a whole change in the generational aspect of our managers and our board. You can see it every year. We're getting a little bit younger, and that's tough because you've had people who've been president for 10 years. They've been a manager for 15 or 20 years. They're PCAMs. That they know the market. They know the players. What I would say to a new young manager is get a hold of your good relationships and then ask a lot of questions. The role of a property manager, or I should say a community association manager who's a licensed professional in Florida, it's a pretty significant job. And there's a lot of responsibility. You need to be a confidant to the board. You need to know accounting. You need to know insurance. You need to know vendors. You need to do project management. You need to know the law. You need to be able to do minutes. You may need to know your architectural review standards for your properties. You may have 9 or 10 properties to take care of,
Mhm.
which means 9 or 10 annual meetings, 9 or 10 monthly meetings, 9 or 10 annual budgets. It's a significant amount of work. And really, you got to be the type of person that can really juggle a lot of balls and do it well to be a manager. But my point would be that there's a lot of professionals out there that are willing to give you advice and help. It's just up to you to find them and to ask a lot of questions and to get to the trusted advisors who you want to deal with, and then continue to bring those advisors to your properties, and to give your boards the best the advice that you can through the best vendors that you can find.
Yeah. Couldn't say it any better myself. All right. Very good. Okay, here's maybe lighten it up a little bit more then here towards the end of our discussion. Can you tell me about maybe the most wild or outlandish claim that you've come across in your long career of insurance?
Well, I like to say I've seen it all, but every year, well, then COVID came, and
Every year surprises you still.
every year there's a surprise, and every hurricane that comes through, there's a new lesson, sort of lesson learned. But we have had some. Well, we've had alligator bites. We've had a board
Alligator bites.
alligator bites people in the water. We've had board members attacked by members. I've gone to annual meetings, and they show up, and there's a keg of beer there at the annual meeting, and by the end we're calling the meeting to a close, and everybody's got already had 4 or 5 drinks under their belt. So every association is unique. Our claims. I don't really have one. I would say that's really out of the box, off the wall. Usually our claims do come from places where we don't expect them, though. And I tell people all the time, we may think we may
Mhm.
think that the hurricane's going to be the
That's the
biggest
whole point
issue.
of insurance. It comes
Right.
from where you're not expecting it. Right?
Hurricanes, catastrophe losses, we take care of. Water damage claims are very important now. Kitchen fires, just the safety of the property. We're seeing a lot more claims for personal injury, people slipping and falling on a property where the property wasn't maintained, or maybe they were in a place where they shouldn't have been. So that's the very new trend, kind of that we see, are the lawsuits that are coming through, and they're having a pretty significant impact on insurability.
Yeah, well, we went down this slippery slope of being a litigious society, probably starting in the 80s. Uh, and that's
True, well, very true.
a reason for a lot of the insurance that exists today, I'm sure.
Well, I think you take a look. Citizens is our insurer of last resort. Of their, everything they do is public. They're saying they're receiving something like 1,000 lawsuits a month. It's just unsustainable. We just cannot continue the track that we're on and expect insurance to be affordable. Insurance, again, it's just a risk transfer. We're only going to charge you what it takes to cover the claims and to have an underwriting profit. At the end of the day, that's what we do. So as claims go up, and people always say, "Why do we pay so much more in Florida?" Yes, part of it is hurricane without a doubt, but it's also because of the number of
Because of
claims.
Florida man.
Florida man,
That's right.
it's just the number of claims that we're seeing and the demand for more money for every claim. And we do pay, and when people do pad claims and we do have lawsuits, we have to remember it's us as policyholders, every citizen in Florida, that's paying that price.
It makes sense, I guess. Is reinsurance something that you can or want to talk about? Can you explain a little bit about, because from what I understand, that's
Mhm.
really what drives the price of your premium, is because those
Reinsurance,
companies that
yeah,
are underwriting are also getting their own insurance
sure.
on the insurance.
Right, because an insurance company has insurance. They buy insurance just like you. I mean, there's no one that can say as an insurance company that they're on the total amount of property or the total amount of liability that they insure. Reinsurance is just insurance companies buying insurance for their policyholders to cover them in the event of a claim. They'll put up so much cash to take care of a claim, but after that, it's laid off on a reinsurance company. And we have less reinsurance companies that we've had in the past. We actually had one umbrella company this week that said they may have to stop writing insurance in the state of Florida because they couldn't find reinsurance.
Hmm.
So, reinsurance, the costs as they increase, as they decrease, impact us every year. And it is very important. We cannot, as an industry, charge enough to cover it. Let's just say a Cat 5 came through Miami and exited out of Tampa Bay. We, as an industry, cannot charge enough money to cover that level of claims. 90% of Floridians live within 10 miles of the coast. So we have to mitigate that risk by buying reinsurance, by spreading out our risk, by not insuring, maybe just newer buildings or having a mix of properties, a mix of locations, and things like that. But the reinsurance comes in because no company can stand alone on their own 2 feet, make that charge for all the claims that they're going to see. It's always been that way. It's going to be that way moving forward. And reinsurance is becoming more important because we need to have that financial stability of our companies. We have to have good, solid insurance companies in Florida. It needs to be available and it needs to be at a fair price. The real issue we're having now is the fair price. What do we consider to be fair? Because what you hear on the TV and on the news about insurance companies is not what I see in the industry publications, the combined ratios, the losses that I see, and that we hear from the companies.
So you mentioned earlier Governor DeSantis, called a special session of the Florida Legislature to deal with the
Hmm.
property insurance
Hmm.
crisis. But I mean, what can government really do to make that situation better?
Well, and everything we do in Florida is governed by the Department of Insurance, so they do play a role. We have a consumer advocate within the Department of Insurance to help policyholders out for questions, concerns, and problems. And insurance in Florida is a regulated industry. I mean, all companies, for the most part, must disclose something to the Department of Insurance to be here. And I won't get. There's a lot of caveats to that, but there's a lot of things we can do to make a fair and level playing field for insurance companies. We need people to be able to come into the market, charge what they feel is an appropriate rate for the risk, and have an underwriting profit at the end of the day. On the other side, we need to make sure that insureds are properly covered and they're getting there's choices available to them. And I think there are choices that the legislature and the governor can make to open up the market and to make it more companies to come in. We need more companies to come into Florida to offer the products. When we have competition is when insurance rates go down.
Mm.
I've seen it every time. Yes, they go up after a hurricane for 2 or 3 years, but as those losses drop off, we have more people that come in and are available to offer quotes, and that's what we need. We need more competition, and whatever way they see fit to do that, We need to do that. Also, the legislature can ask on your high rises, which are going to be 4 stories and above, they're going to want more underwriting information, more inspections, insurability inspections, structural inspections, integrity inspections. So you're going to see more of an oversight on your high rise buildings because we do need to make sure that they are in good shape. And that's really, and sometimes people say, well, isn't that my insurance company responsibility? And the answer is no, it's not in Florida. You're the board, it's your home, you need to take care of it. And it's really up to you to take those inspections to heart and make sure that they're done.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know why anyone would ask if it was the insurance company's responsibility to make sure their building is safe. Um, well, that's that kick in the can, right?
Yep, kick the can
Pass
down
the
the road.
buck.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that I have missed? Anything you want to mention or question that you feel that should have been asked? Or
No, I will go back to again about choosing professionals. And I think that's really how we got started. You and I met at a CE class here in Southwest Florida. We were training managers on insurance and the things to look for. And one of the questions that kept coming up are what about these new changes coming up in the state of Florida as opposed to building inspections? I think they're coming. I think associations need to be ready now to budget for them in 2023. You need to be finding out who is your engineering company that you want to work with that has done these, that is capable, that has the expertise. Anybody, for example, can sell you a flood policy, but not everybody is a flood insurance quote expert. I know we do thousands of flood policies. We know them for associations. It's what we do every day. The same thing in the engineering field, in the attorney field, and things like that. You need to find your professionals now and begin to engage them because those inspections are going to be required. You got to budget for it. You need someone who knows what they're looking for because there's probably going to be standards that are coming down. We got to make sure people update their appraisals and their reserve studies. If you're not updating your reserve studies for all the things that you own, eventually I think it's going to come back to haunt you in some way. You're going to be underfunded at the time of the loss. And having been through several hurricanes now in Florida, the properties that have the funding available after that hurricane to engage a professional and get the job rolling are the ones who get fixed first, and in my opinion, best. And I think we need more future planning on that for boards because eventually it's going to happen. It's just a question of when.
yeah, yeah, for sure, without a doubt. All right. Well, thank you, Scott. I really appreciate you joining me
Thank you.
today. You've given a lot of great insight, and I appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much.
Okay, my pleasure.